Massive protest outside of the State of the Union, as well as government websites and coincidentally, Truth Social unexpectedly shut down at certain moments leading into the State of the Union and during the vast majority of the State of the Union address. What is happening? Plus, what are all the things that Joe Biden said that you need to know about, and why tonight on Encounter Underground, we are taking Encounter news to the nation, and we're letting you know that we're bringing you not partisan, but prophetic information that's going to help you as a believer with all the end time news that matters to you. And I'm so thankful that we've got all the guests that we need to help filter through and sort through all of the clutter. First, running all the equipment in the background, taking your comments because we want to hear from you. Evan DiDio is with us right here. Evan, good to see you.
I'm here. I'm ready to watch your comments. I can't wait to hear your questions. By the way, if you have a question, it really helps me to identify it. If you have 4 question marks before it, so throw them in the chat.
Yeah, throw those in the chat. We want to know where you're watching from, what your initial thoughts are. Go ahead and begin to lay those out in the comments. But to help us really break down all of the political speak, we've got Mattea Merta with us from Encounter News, and we're so thankful to have you.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here. What a speech that was. Wow. So much to talk about.
So much to discuss. Let's start off with this. I know you were covering it live, so I don't know if you really had a chance to dig into this, but leading into the State of the Union address, President Trump promised that he would be commenting live on Truth Social so we could get his feedback. And Truth Social seemed to be shut down, as well as many government websites coincidentally shut down leading into the speech and through the majority of it. Any thoughts on that?
Honestly, I'm not surprised, but at the same time, what more do you expect at this point in time in our country, where anything that's tied to the World Wide Web, snap of a finger and it can be gone. So I'm not too surprised. I want to see what Trump's reaction is within the next probably hour or so to all of these shutdowns. So I think it'll be quite dramatic, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, there was some laugh out loud moments with Trump's reactions throughout the speech. At one point, he messaged, "Looks like the drugs are wearing off," and
It's great.
certainly there were a lot of slurs during that speech. But I don't want
Mhm.
anyone watching to take for granted what we heard. We're going to talk about this in a moment. I really believe that what we heard, as an avatar, as Joe Biden is, he's simply regurgitating what the global elites and what the powers that be want him to say. So we need to pay very close attention to what he said, because they believe those are the winning issues going into the 2024 election. We will certainly come back to that. But Evan, so far, what are we seeing in the comments before we get into some of the other breaking news?
Yeah, so I'm going to pull on over here. Number 1, Miss Heather, come on, woohoo, God is on the throne, and heaven is behind the scenes.
Come
Evan is
on.
behind the scenes. Let's go.
There we go.
Let's see. Paula's watching from Maryland. Great to see you, Paula. I like that name, watching from Idaho. Miss Heather said there were some weird blackouts. Yeah, I agree. That was very strange. Even watching on my end as well. Flame says, good evening, Bishop Allen, or night technically. Love it. I've been loving everyone's comments so far. Keep bringing them.
Yeah, if you have an important question, make sure you let us know in the comments. Also, Mateo, there's a couple questions that I received about the protests going into, seem to be blocking off some of the streets going into the State of the Union, as well as why a lot of women were wearing white at the State of the Union address. First, let's talk about the protest. These are pro-Palestinian protests. These are Biden supporters. Any
Mhm.
news about what was going on outside of the State of the Union address?
So far, the majority of the comments have just solely been what you just repeated, is that these were pro-Palestinian Biden supporters, and supposedly it looked like there could have been some violence. I have not been able to corroborate that quite yet. Looks like things got a little bit touchy, but up until this point, I don't want to speak anything that hasn't been confirmed, so I'm just waiting for more details.
Yeah, and um, Biden was very late to the address, interestingly
Mhm.
enough. At first, I thought he was going to be late because it was intentional, because his speech was going to be shorter than most State of the Union addresses, but
That's
he
what I thought.
actually droned on for quite a long time there. And there's such a low bar set for him that I think that his presentation, even though it was subpar from a normal standard, but from what we
Mhm.
expect from him, he made it through the speech.
He did make it through the speech. There's so funny. The commenters during that on our feed were counting how many times he was slurring. And I think we got up to like 40, 42. So I'm glad that he got through, though, just for the sake of the American standard of presidents getting through their speeches. So I
Yeah,
was
we
quite,
broke 100 slurs though, so it was about 2 slurs a minute, I think, on average, is what it eventually boiled down to. But I could be mistaken. More breaking news on the slurs, I'm sure, is coming through as we dive in. But let's answer the question about the women wearing white
yes.
in there. What is that all about?
That those are pro-women representatives, and pro-women primarily to them means that they are pro-abortion, not pro-choice, pro-abortion, and that is how they symbolize their support for this demonic action that is legal still in this country in certain states.
Yeah, interesting. Wearing white, which is what a bride wears on her wedding day. Evan, let's take a look at my feed here very quickly because I think we have a clip about Joe Biden, if I'm not mistaken, there on our X feed. If you go to at Alan DiDio on X, and if you scroll down or up, actually, there should be, if I'm not mistaken,
Which one are you looking for?
something, the one that's on abortion that I sent to you. Stuff is already not found. That's interesting
Yeah.
about the government websites being shut down.
Oh, was this about
Interesting.
him threatening the SCOTUS justices?
Yes. Now this is big news,
Yes.
ladies and gentlemen. So just before we dive into this, you need to know that there's certain decorum in a State of the Union address. Now, over the years, certainly decorum's been breaking and breaking and breaking, but the Supreme Court sits in on the State of the Union, and they are emotionless. They do not engage with the speech, and the president does not engage with them. It is a separate branch of the government, and so it's one of the checks and balances, and so they're supposed to be separate. They're not supposed to be intimidated by, spoken to by, influenced by the executive branch. And here is what President Biden said speaking directly to, which is a breach of decorum, the Supreme Court.
Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court majority wrote the following, and with all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about that. Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court.
So the question is, Mattea, was he threatening the Supreme Court there? You're about to find out.
Well, it sure does sound like a threat. I was listening to that live and I did a double take. I was like, what did he just do? And it's a verbal threat. But then there's just the breaking of decorum for me. I am all about decorum, especially in these kinds of settings. And for the world superpower leader, that man to break it at that critical moment over the issue of an unconstitutional ruling, which is Roe v. Wade, and then stating that him coming back into office, if he gets that second term, that he's going to restore that because of women voting for him because of the abortion issue. That was blatantly disgusting to me to see. But breaking decorum, that's not going to serve him well in the future.
It's interesting that as we're hearing this, they are going to make abortion a dominant issue going into the 2024 election. In fact, there was someone visiting there who had to go out of state in order to get an abortion. Do you have any details
Yes.
about her particular case?
Absolutely. It's actually it's a very devastating case. So her name is Kate Cox and she's from Texas, and she got the diagnosis very late in her child's gestation that she, I believe it was a boy, ended up having a diagnosis that was not favorable to the health of the child, and the parents did not want to deal with that diagnosis. So what did Kate Cox do? She, one, found out that Texas would not support her having a late-term abortion. And so therefore, she left the state and went and had her little baby murdered in the womb. So this is the person that Joe Biden personally invited to the State of the Union. And not only did he invite Kate Cox, he also invited to the gallery to view this momentous point in history, as he kept repeating tonight, an abortionist. So it just signifies that abortion is going to be a huge talking point of issue for him and the Democrats going into this election.
Yeah, let's listen to just a second of what he had to say about this issue.
Americans, I believe acts could happen again. So tonight, let's stand up for families like hers. To my friends across the aisle, don't keep this waiting any longer. Guarantee the right to ABS. Guarantee it nationwide. Like most Americans, I believe Roe v. Wade got it right. I thank Vice President Harris for being an incredible leader, defending reproductive freedom, and so much more. Acts, it could happen again.
Yeah, again, some more slurring there. You got to push past that. It's fine. I'm curious of those watching, how many of you think that Biden is actually going to be on the ballot in 2024? I've got mixed emotions about it, whether he's actually physically capable. If he's capable of standing there, I think that there are certain political powers that want him to be there. But what are your thoughts, Mattea?
I can see him bowing out at any moment, to be honest. It could be a month before the election and he's gone. So I was pulling a little bit for Michelle Obama at one point, but clearly that is not going to be happening. I
Now,
can't
why do
see
you say
who
that?
else.
Why do you say no to Michelle Obama? Why is she not going to run? Because I got to tell you, that's terrifying because she would be
That's
tough to beat.
terrifying. Oh, very difficult to beat. I think out of any political candidate, forget about Kamala Harris, the whole minority. She's a woman, she's of color, whatever. You have Michelle Obama in there against Trump. I actually don't think Trump actually can beat Michelle, unfortunately.
No, I agree. I agree. We would need like a Tucker Carlson infusion on the ticket to even come close to being able to beat that. But why do you say that she would say no?
She's come out publicly twice, very adamantly stating that she would not. But you know what? People change their minds, so that could still be a shot for her.
Yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think there's a chance that Biden gets out? Evan, what are you seeing in the comments?
Yeah, I think some people like Syntax says 60% chance he's on the ballot. Heather says, I don't think so.
I'm sorry, I just get a kick out of it every time. Sorry.
What did
keep
you
going.
see?
No.
I think I know what you saw, but
yeah, 60% chance he's on the ballot. That's all I'm going to say.
I think he was referring to
No, I know
Joe Biden.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if he was referring to Joe Biden or.
Yeah, Paula Cahn. I don't think they'll put him back in. But if he isn't, who will be? Amelia, great question. Who would they put in? Do y'all think that it would be Michelle Obama, or do you think there's somebody else in the running that would be the case for?
Potentially, it could be Kamala. It could be Gavin Newsom. At this point, it really just depends on at what point they want him in or out.
Yeah, some are saying that the dream team ticket for the DNC would be Michelle Obama and Gavin Newsom, in whatever order that would be. And maybe before we leave here tonight, if you remind me, we'll ask a few questions about who you want the running mate for President Trump to be. Those of you that are watching, let us know in the comments who you think his running mate should be. But let's dive a little bit more into the State of the Union address because there's a lot in there, and I'm looking through my notes here. What are some of the things that stood out to you, Mattea, as you were going through this live with everyone on Encounter News? What jumped out at you?
Oh gosh, I was telling everybody at the beginning of it, I basically have a bingo card every State of the Union now, and it's trigger every single time, and basically my entire card was filled out. So we got, of course, the socialistic nod to universal health care. We got abortion mentioned. Obviously, we just discussed that. But then we got the foreign policy in there, China, border crisis, comments on the border crisis were fascinating to me. Of course, we got healthcare with insulin, gun control. Everything was kind of covered, education. So for me, the things that really stood out were the border crisis, because we've been talking about this from the left and the right, the media, politicians, advocacy, everybody's very heavily invested in this issue now. And with the recent death of Lagan Riley, that was a huge point of contention, even within the chamber, I felt. So that was very fascinating because he started talking about we're against illegal migration, but we're also not going to speak against it at the same time. It was this point of contention that I thought was fascinating. But at the same time of him taking a stance against the border crisis, which no president has allowed so many illegal aliens into a country as he has at this point in time, which goes and contradicts exactly what he stated during the address. But at the same time, we recently learned, and we put out on Encounter News' X account, that he brought in through American planes into American cities all throughout America, I think it's 34 cities, he brought in 320,000 illegal aliens. so that there wouldn't be a bottleneck at the border. So he's both fighting illegal migration, but at the same time, he's facilitating it. So there's just a point of contention there. But then again,
And
the
it's not just that
threatening,
he brought them in. That number is specific ones who were flown across the country, if I'm not mistaken, um,
yes,
in the dead of night and just deposited
exactly.
different places across the nation.
Yeah, exactly correct. And recently, I just actually saw from Polk County, Florida, uh, what is his name? The sheriff of that county, Sheriff Judd, he actually came out and he stated that there were 3 young women from Venezuela who had been trafficked across the southern border and were being used for sex trafficking. And they were caught, and the one individual, anyway, who was helping facilitate them being utilized in that way, he also was under arrest. So these individuals who are being brought into the country are facilitating sex trafficking, human trafficking, and Biden just brought in 320K of these individuals. So not only is he facilitating illegal migration, but at the same time, human trafficking in the nation. And that's, I think, is a point that we have to discuss.
Yeah, knowingly that when they spoke with the authorities in an interview, they knowingly are sending these children to people who are potentially trafficking them, and there's nothing they can do about it because they're so strained. Interestingly enough, I thought it was fascinating that when he opened his speech on the State of the Union, the first thing he talked about was another country. The first thing he spoke about was Ukraine, and
Yes.
and somehow laid out this fallacy that Ukraine can win against one of the largest military powers in the world if we'll just give them enough weapons. It's interesting though. Why don't we see? We see all the footage from World War II. We see all the footage from Desert Storm and all the wars of late. We don't see a lot of
Mm-hmm.
footage of what's going on with the war in Ukraine. Why is that?
No, we really don't. It's a great question. I've often asked myself this. Where are the citizen journalists? Well, Ukraine cracks down on them, just like they crack down on Christians in the churches and faith leaders in Ukraine. They're cracking down on any media that is not government sanctioned. So I would dare to say that that's potentially a major reason why we're not seeing any real footage. And the footage that we have seen is all fake. At least the vast majority of it is indeed fake, and verifiably so. So I believe that's probably why. But on the point of Ukraine, that is a great comment that you brought up, because that was fascinating. Why are we pointing straight to Ukraine? Why are we demeaning Russia at this point in time? This is an address about the State of the Union. And last I checked, Ukraine and Russia are not in this unified country of America.
Yeah, the State of the Union is supposed to be a time when the president appears before these elected officials and tells them all the updates about what's been happening throughout the year. I believe it was, of course, Washington started it, but Thomas Jefferson, if I'm not mistaken, put a pause on it because he felt like that it was getting too dictatorial. I'm putting words in his mouth, but demagoguery, if I can use that word. And I was actually very surprised. Joe Biden, who throughout the years has always been known as kind of this lovable, you could consider him a stooge, but people on both sides would enjoy talking with him and enjoyed having conversations with him. That was a demagogue we saw up there today. The harsh rhetoric that came
Yeah.
against conservatives about gun rights, about everything was, for me, it was surprising at how strong of a stance he took.
Yeah, I was waiting for the moment where I can be a person who gives the benefit of the doubt, who searches for that one optimistic string I can pull on and try to promote, but it fell short by a lot, actually. And I was just waiting for that old Joe Biden to reappear, but I think he's been dead and gone for quite a while. And now we have this new one who is kind of just like everybody else.
Well, let's take a look at this. Speaking of that demagoguery and the divisiveness of the speech, let's take a look at what he said about what happened the first month of his tenure in office.
About the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. But they failed. America stood. America stood strong and democracy prevailed. We must be honest. The threat to democracy must be defended. my predecessor and some of you here seek to bury the truth about January 6th. I will not do that. This is the moment to speak the truth and to bury the lies. Here's the simple truth. You can't love your country only when you win. As I've done ever since being elected to office, I ask all of you without regard to party to join together and defend democracy. Remember your oath of office is defending against all threats, foreign and domestic.
Yeah. So there's so much to unpack there when I'm listening to that it's really shocking. The January 6th committee, by the way, was intentionally and deliberately hiding information, facts, video, documents. What's your response to what we just saw?
Like you said, where do we begin? My gosh, with regards to the January 6th committee itself, the former committee, because it was taken over under the new government, or excuse me, the new House of Representatives, found that the last committee was kind of a sham, and they deleted a bunch of encrypted files so that they could never be found, and the information they needed to go back over wasn't there. So with regards to January 6th, I want justice. Everybody kind of wants justice, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on. But if we really want justice, we have to actually go through the uncomfortable footage that the Democrats don't want us to see. And I would dare to say, even some of the Republicans don't want us to see. And that is how individuals were led into the Capitol. And I don't want us to get taken down on YouTube and everywhere else we're streaming. But I think people want justice. And if we actually achieve justice, it would splash across headlines in a very fresh new way. And Democrats would not be pleased.
Yeah, as far as hiding the truth, there's only one side of the debate that is attempting to censor the other side of the debate, which is why we have to be very careful about what we say and how we say it. But that should speak volumes to you. Evan, what are some of the comments that we have so far?
Yeah, and while that's on my mind, I thought it was interesting they used, and of course I'm not going to use the exact terminology, but he used the word subversion connected to the democratic processes. Of course, I'm kind of trying to speak in code, but the word subversion is different. I haven't heard that recently when describing what they believe happened, or what anybody believes happened back then. So I thought that was interesting. Sean says, I avoid politics and Biden like the plague nowadays. I follow, but from a distance. Yeah, as much as necessary, right? Nicole Mead said, love that the book background. Yeah, let me see. That one right there.
We thought it was appropriate to have summoning the demon in the background during
this
State of the Union
great.
address.
Yes.
It just seemed to fit perfectly.
But they were having a book club tonight, and they spent like an hour just discussing the introduction, which is so cool. It is a good, isn't that Rick Renner? Or was that the foreword? Excuse me. That's the foreword. Yeah, good stuff, guys. And I'll keep watching for some comments. So far, we're pretty steady. Jew and Greeks did bring this up. The threat must be defended. That's interesting. What do you guys think about what he said there?
Of course, just it's Biden speak.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah. So, what else we got in the comments there?
Yeah, we got
Brother Alan. Would Brother Alan sign my book? Of course I would. You just got to bring it for me to sign it. For those who don't know what we're talking about, you got to go to summoningthedemon.com or blameitonthenephilim.com for more information. But I want to dig down a little bit, Mattea, into
Boom.
There it is, boom.
There
I
it
want to
is.
dig down into the meat of this speech, because what we just saw was the script for the Democratic Party, for the far left, leading in the 2024 election. What do you think are their winners as you're kind of analyzing this from a political stance? They think that these are all issues that they can win on. What do you think are the things that we need to be concerned about?
The major one that I saw was universal health care. This tiptoeing around socialism and with politics, politicians always use this speak that is, we're going to address an issue that's going to signal to all of our supporters, whether that's in advocacy, whether that's big pharma, which was mentioned tonight, whether that is honestly, education, it doesn't matter. They always tiptoe around subjects without solely addressing them. But Biden kind of went there tonight. He kind of went there with full hilt with the socialistic talk that was really disturbing to me. So I think universal healthcare is going to be a big one. He brought up Obamacare. He brought up the price of insulin, which was actually something that I was kind of waiting for. But he also brought up a lot having to do with his foreign policy. That was something that I think more and more Americans, if you had an American president talking so much like this about foreign countries, even 10 years ago, Americans would be like, whoa, what are we doing here? This isn't having to do with our country. But I think foreign policy at this point in time, with a hyper emotional, highly political society, I think that is going to be a tipping point for people. And then, of course, we're going to have to deal with the abortion issue. That's going to be a heavy hand, because now people in states are feeling the real effects of state law, not federal, but state law coming into play after the overturn of Roe v. Wade. And the majority of Americans, unfortunately, don't understand the separation between state sovereignty and federal policy. So that's going to be another one. I think also the border issue, immigration, migration, it's going to be a sticking point for at least the next 3 to 4 years. Either we're going to see a further degrade and going down the hill of this, or we're going to see an uptick and some positive reinforcement of current policy, but also hopefully some new policies coming into place to strengthen that. So I think abortion, universal health care, the border, and foreign policy are their kickers.
So those of you who are part of local churches, you need to make sure you have a scriptural response to these things to know how to give an answer for the hope that lies within you. And just to put a little cherry on top, here's what he had to say concerning a particular social issue.
I want to protect fundamental rights. Pass the Equality Act. And my message to transgender Americans, I have your back.
My message to transgender Americans, I have your back. I think it's poorly timed on the heels of the Dorito spokesperson or individual that they hired has just, if I'm not mistaken, either been charged or taken to jail with child pornography, their trans spokesperson. Is it a smart move for the Democratic Party to step into and put their shoulder behind the trans movement at this time?
No, it never has been and never will be. I have a lot of individuals. I work with a plethora of individuals in pro-family work who happen to be a part of the part of the LGBT group, but those LGBs are not in favor of the Ts, and the Ts are not in favor of the LGBs. And so even within that own little group of the world, this is very divisive. And so that's where you have individuals like Gays Against Groomers. They're very clearly against specific groups of individuals, but it's not just individuals, it's against groups of ideologies. And ideologies around the trans movement, not a smart thing to back, especially from a federal government stance. So poor use of this point in the State of the Union address.
And one of the most important things going into 2024 is making sure you're getting the right information, and information that doesn't produce fear or division, but informs you, feeds your faith, starves your doubts to death, and gives you all the insights that you need so that you can speak directly to these things, which is why we're really leaning into encounternews.com. Encounternews.com, we want every single one of you to make sure you make it a place that you visit daily. What's happening on encounternews.com, Mattea, because you're an integral part of this. You're making this happen. What are we doing this for, and what can people expect every day at encounternews.com?
Every day you can expect to get the truth on very important issues. There's so many, I've worked in media for a very long time, government, and there's so many headlines being pushed at people, and they're just filled with fear. And I have hated that from the get-go. And there's never really an action item attached to them, or as believers, there's no Christian perspective provided at the same point in time as you're being faced with, like, we're dealing with this issue with Doritos and their use of a trans individual's life and influence. Well, what does the Christian have to say in response to that? Or what is a Christian response to what we're dealing with tonight? Politics in general, voting, the abortion issue. How should we respond? So with Encounter News, we're providing you the truth from original source documents, which is incredibly important. And we're doing the research for you and with you and bringing you that Christian perspective so that you're not only informed, but you can be encouraged and take action.
Yeah, so important now more than ever. And I want to show you this. It should be the first thing on my feed there, Evan. I just shared it. This is breaking. Um, yeah, refresh that. There was a gentleman who yelled something out in the middle. I don't know if you remember this, of from one of the top tiers, and he was escorted out by security. And this is the father of Marine Lance Corporal Kareem. I'm going to get the last name wrong. Who was killed during Biden's botched Afghanistan withdrawal,
Mm.
and he's escorted out of Capitol. Do we have that, Evan?
I can't find it yet. I don't think it's shared yet.
Let's see. Well, refresh that, and we'll get to it. I couldn't hear what he was shouting, though. Mattea, could
I
you
believe
hear
it was
him?
something about the Marines. I couldn't pick out the first word, but it was something about the Marines, I believe. That the whole debacle around pulling out of Afghanistan, that was just brutal. I think Republicans need to hammer that hard at this point in the election cycle and not let people forget about that. Because what that actually did was it armed America's true enemies overseas. All of that weaponry, the secrets that are in the Apache helicopters that were left there at the military bases, all of that was left for our enemies to take over. So Americans can't forget about that.
I want to show that clip, and then I want to get your final thoughts. Then we have something very, very special to show you guys that you're not going to want to miss, of some of Biden's best moments throughout his administration. You're not going to want to miss that. The great order of our day. But here's that Marine. Let's see if we can hear him.
All Americans deserve the freedom to be safe, and America is safer today than when I took office. Year before I took office, murder rates went up 30%. 30% they went up. The biggest increase in history. It was then, through my American Rescue Plan, which every American voted against, I might add, all
Lost his son, and is there, stands up for the United States Marines. It's a very different moment we're in since the last State of the Union address, when Marjorie Taylor Greene yelled out that he's a liar. I believe it was the last one where she
Yes.
did that, and then of course she confronted him during this one as well concerning the victim of an illegal immigrant.
Yeah.
So it's a different world we're in. What do you think about all of the interjections and the interruptions during a State of the Union address? Where's the line?
You know what? I'm there's decorum and then there's this. So I think that if you're in the House, you need to respect the House rules. However, I think that, if I say that this is favorable at this point for this president, even though I don't like him, I'm going to have to say I'm in favor of it for when the next president comes in, if they're a Republican, whether it be Donald Trump or someone else. So I'm all in favor of people having dignity and respecting the rules. But I can also understand when somebody gets upset over something like this. At the same time, there's a place for that.
I like a little bit of the rough and tumble, but it doesn't need to be, as long as it's not disruptive. That's my position. As long as it's not, if it's in the pauses, then holler what you want. I mean, I prefer the way they do it across the pond when they're yelling at each other in the middle of the debates. It's
We had that in Canada, yes, in the House of Commons. Yes, it's a very normal thing.
In Canada, as polite as everyone is there.
Oh, absolutely. You get hecklers in the chambers all the time. It's fun. But if you're in the gallery, you remain silent and you observe. You've sent your representative to have your voice heard, so you let your voice speak through them. They can heckle for you.
What do you guys think in the comments, and why you guys are doing that? Do we have True Social? Do we have some of Trump's?
Yeah, I'll pull it up.
Let's just pull that up,
I
Evan,
haven't
and
seen
kind of
this
read
yet.
to us kind of his latest. Let's see what Trump's latest post is. This is live, everybody, so we're going to get the best of the best from True Social. Let's see what Donald Trump has to say right here. Evan's pulling it up, refreshing it.
Yeah, we got to get the
He
latest
said,
stuff.
that may be, can everybody see that there? That may be the angriest, least compassionate, worst State of the Union speech ever made. It was an embarrassment to our country. He didn't stand up to Putin. He gave Putin Ukraine. No, scroll down because this is important. He said, don't shake his hand. He's been coughing into it the entire night. Scroll up.
Oh my goodness.
Let's see. Here's the latest one 14 minutes ago. if you get rid of TikTok, Facebook, and Zucker Schmuck will double their business. I want Facebook, who cheated in the last election, doing better. They are a true enemy of the people. Yeah, so Trump's going to be on there. I don't know how. I understand why he's on Truth, but I think I would like to see him more on X.
I miss him on X. Everybody always said that their main objection to him was his angry tweets. And then you ask them, well, have you read his angry tweets? Are you even on Twitter at the time? And they're like, no, I just heard about it. I miss angry tweet Trump. I like that man. That was fun. That made politicking fun.
He's still there. He's still there. It's just on Truth Social, which we don't ever think about going to.
I think he's missing out on a whole lot, though, not being on X.
Maybe there's a big donation there, like to his campaign.
Well, it's his company, so he's
got it. Yeah,
got to push Truth
Makes
Social.
sense.
So, what are the comments before we get into Mattea's last thoughts?
Yeah. So number one here, Paula says, "What was the most concerning statement made?" So what do you both think about that?
I think him uplifting foreign countries above America is very devastating, because I think a lot of Americans are indeed hurting. And it was kind of a slap in their face to hear that their money is being spent here, there, and everywhere, but not in America.
Yeah, for me, in the demagoguery surrounding J6, and we didn't talk about tonight the Second Amendment, which he's going to take guns from law-abiding Americans, but that's not in any way an infringement on the Second Amendment. To me, that was very concerning.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yes.
a lot of comments and responses on X saying, come and take it. What else do you have there, Evan?
Yeah, Syntax. Great comments, by the way, from Syntax. As a deputy, my takeaway was America is safer today than at any other time. Is that a true statement, Ms. Mattea?
Absolutely not. 100% no. I reject. Negative.
Well, you'll hear these statistics a lot, by the way, that crime is going down, and of course that's a stat that is easily manipulated. You need to ask this question: going down where?
Not in New
Because
York, where
not
the
in New
National
York, not
Guard
in
was just
Chicago,
deployed.
not in Chicago, not in San Francisco. So crime is going down in conservative communities all across America, and it's going up in liberal strongholds all across America. So that's my response to that.
Yeah. Heather wrote in here, yes, Mattea, that push for healthcare, and specifically the odd references to cancer.
Oh, we have that clip, as a matter of fact.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, we have that clip on my feed. Can you see that, Evan?
Yeah,
This
let
was
me
a very
pull it up.
odd comment. I wanted to get your thoughts on. I wasn't sure if I understood it. It was so quick, I had to go back and find the clip to make sure I heard it correctly, where he talks about the vaccines. Yeah. Evan, do you have that?
I'm going to go look for it now.
It's on mine, so you can just
Gotcha.
scroll down on mine. And he links the vaccines to a cure for cancer, and I just wondered if I missed something
I think I heard the same thing.
in the news. I think that's it right there. You just have to start it over.
Yeah.
Here we go.
The vaccines that saved us from COVID are now being used to beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. The vaccines that saved us from
I want to listen to it again. Yeah, play it again. I want to make sure I heard that
COVID
correctly.
are now being used to beat cancer,
Okay.
turning setback into
I don't know if
comeback.
you guys got to need to let me know in comments, seriously, because I'm wondering. He was surprisingly lucid tonight, so I could have missed something. Is there been some kind of connection to the vaccines and some sort of
That seemed planned.
treatment for cancer? Yeah.
Yeah, just so we don't get taken down, there has been some regression in certain types of cancers, supposedly through medical studies, when individuals have gotten specific rounds of the C19 injections. But at the same time, we're also seeing a spike in cancers of various kinds in individuals who've gotten various kinds of the flu injections. So it's both, and I haven't seen any developments with regards to specific, whether that's Pfizer, Moderna, whatever, mRNA injections in general have seen improvement in cancerous cells being depleted. So
That's fascinating.
there's lots of information. I don't know exactly where he was going with that, but hey, cancer is going up in America, so it could have just been a nod to those individuals.
Well, a lot of what this sounded like to me throughout the speech was like someone running for student body president. And I'm going to make sure all the candy bars in the vending machine are free, and there's going to be Kool-Aid coming out of the water fountain, and there'll be no more homework. And it's these kinds of pie in the sky promises.
When he first mentioned cancer, it made me wonder, like, well, maybe if he had cancer, what if he made it his campaign's goal to beat cancer, and then it's announced, oh, he has cancer, so he can't run. So now let's, use it as
Evan always
push.
taking us to the conspiracy theories.
I gotta have one every live stream.
Well, and something that he said was interesting is that we can end cancer. And I said it on the live stream, so I apologize for anybody who got completely triggered like that. But at the same time, you got triggered, so I can't do anything about it. But everybody who's ever come up with a cancer cure has always been murdered mysteriously or disappeared. So I'm kind of concerned if Biden's saying this, that, hey, something could happen. That's kind of putting himself in a hole, and I don't think he
Well,
wants to do
nothing's going
that.
to happen so long as you dangle the promise out there in front of everybody, but you don't actually deliver on it. Nothing will happen to you. for sure.
Precisely.
But yeah, a lot of confidence in the FDA. I just wanted the CIA and FBI to know that.
Oh, this one's interesting.
Go ahead.
Syntax said, first grade, fine, but reading by third grade as a goal? Come on. Yeah, some of the comments we've been getting about the homeschooling. And yeah, what do you guys think about this?
I missed the homeschooling part.
I screamed out homeschool, I think, at some point.
It was good.
I am all in favor. There was some information about, or excuse me, talk about education in general, but I just think, you know what? Not a federal issue, should be a state issue. Completely abolish Department of Education. That would solve a lot of things in America.
Well, Evan, you can get a few more comments, and Mattea, we're going to get your final thoughts. But let me make an admonition to every single one of you. What this generally tends to do for us is wind us up. We sit and we watch and we read these tweets and we watch these clips and we see the debate and we're just wound up and we want to respond. And so whenever someone shares a similar opinion to the other side of the aisle, we generally tend to react because we have all this pent up aggression. I don't encourage you not to do that. I want to encourage you to stay informed, stay educated, but stay full of the Holy Ghost and look for opportunities to be supernaturally loving and compassionate and understanding and open to listen to other people's side. If you'll listen to them, they're more likely going to listen to you, and then you can unload and give them 2 barrels full of truth, which is absolutely important. But don't get all wound up by this. Don't get all hateful. Don't be like them. Get inspired. I did a interview earlier today where we were talking about a lot of the issues that we talk about in Summoning the Demon with the Nephilim and the aliens and all that kind of stuff that is circling the current cultural zeitgeist. And there are 2 kinds of people when they hear that kind of news, and they're the same that we find when Goliath is taunting the children of Israel. There's some that cower in fear, and that is the majority when they're faced with this supernatural opposition. But then there are those who are just inspired by it, like David, who say, this is my moment. This is my time. This is why I'm here. This is what God's called me to do. And that's the way I want you to feel when you see this. It may seem insurmountable. It may seem like something that we can't turn around, we can't change. But let that Davidic anointing come on you and say, who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? And let's stand up now to be seen and speak up to be heard and speak the truth in love with the power and the anointing of the Holy Ghost. Mattea, what are your final thoughts as we break away from the State of the Union tonight?
That was the exact direction I was going to head in, so I'm glad you kicked it off for me. Thank you. That was wonderfully said. Honestly, we can't become the outrage monkeys that we see on the other side of the aisle, even some of the ones we see on our side of the aisle. It's not going to serve us well. We have to be the source of truth and be the ones who carry wisdom into these conversations. There is a reason why individuals believe what they believe. It could be a personal reason. It could be something that happened to their family, to their friend. And so we have to be the ones who sit back for a period of time and listen, but then be wise in how we speak and when we speak. But speak we must. This election season is not a time for all the hype that we see going on, for the political headlines. That's just the circus that goes on around us. It's a time for us to take action, and even more so as Christians. So don't neglect your opportunity to take action, because that is a place where we can either concede ground or take it. It's up to us.
Absolutely. So good. And always remember, the people who have a lot of these positions have those positions from a position of pain. They're coming from a place of hurt, of woundedness, and you have the answer if you'll bring the healing balm. And I think it's essential that we walk in the word of wisdom, word of knowledge, discerning of spirits as we step into this season so we can speak into that pain, so we can speak into that situation that has caused them to take such an aggressive stance or ignorant stance or whatever the stance may be. Speak truth, speak healing, and let Jesus be glorified. But just to have a little bit of fun, because if you can't laugh at this stuff, you're going to go crazy. Let's take a look here just for a second at, since we're talking about the State of the Union, some of Biden's best moments throughout this administration. And we'll be right back.
Anyway, and I don't want to, well, maybe choose my words. I was just thinking, anyway. But I just, look, I mean, Putin's kleptocracy, yeah. It was in January, after being elected, the late January, early February. He said, it's not, we lead, not just, well, I won't go into it. Here's what drives the driver in the states that are affected. Here's what you can do, the drivers. For two reasons. One, it's an impact the decades are making, because inaction was there was inaction with the Department of from Charlotte, another line going from in Florida down to Tampa. The best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway. The idea that and Joan Shingang, I'm going to pronounce it, Shanga. But there's to be, beginning.
I don't want to do too much because I know what it's like to do public speaking, and I know what it's like to get lost in thought. But it's just entertaining, right? That's good television, right? It's good for audience retention.
Yeah, I think so.
You know what? I think it's great to watch. And if you can't laugh at yourself, I mean, who are you laughing at? I'm sure Biden laughs at himself. But honestly, I'm half laughing, but I'm half just sad because this is like elder abuse to keep putting him up there. And it's just sad to watch. And genuinely, I say that, and half mockingly at the same time. But it is very sad to see our leading man in the state.
Someone had a comment that it's going to be interesting watching MSNBC tomorrow. They've already said, Joe Scarborough already said that Biden is as sharp as he has ever been, And having watched closely the political field for more than 20 years, I can tell you that is certainly not the case. But we do pray for conspicuous conversions. We pray for supernatural miracles and breakthroughs. Any other comments we want to get to, Evan, before we break tonight?
Yeah, Sean, I only pray for him to encounter Jesus. Amen. Yeah, Heather, oh boy, let's go. Syntax, love this verse. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. Daniel 2:21. I think that no matter what happens, God's children are going to be secure. It's going to be amazing.
Come on, that's so good.
We are all made in God's image. Jesus died for us all. Pray for the lost and deceived, that all would come to Jesus. Yeah, kleptocracy. I need to go look that up later. What is that?
Kleptocracy. Yeah, that's what he was trying to say. And that's something that I could have seen myself stumble on, but I would have made fun of myself too.
Yes.
If I would have stumbled on that word.
And we would be doing it in a live stream as well.
Yes, we would. No question about it. And everyone in the comments would as well.
Yes.
Because
you can bet on that.
Equal opportunity offenders are the Encounter family. Lovely people. Lovely, lovely people. But if you'd like more uncensored content, we do a lot of interviews. Just had an amazing interview with Troy Brewer about the church's reaction to Trump. And it's a correction, it's a rebuke to the church. And it's actually a phenomenal conversation. That's available on our premium side because that's the uncensored area. And you're helping us support the persecuted church around the world when you become a premium member. So you can go to encountertoday.com and check that out. I think the first month is $1 and just helps you get involved in the conversation. We have a whole premium page separate with downloads, digital downloads, PDFs, audios, videos that are just for you over there to bless you. And thank you for helping us minister to people who are suffering for Jesus Christ around the world. So you can check that out again at encountertoday.com. Mattea, any final thoughts before we leave tonight? I already asked you that, but might as well ask again.
The one thing that I didn't mention was throughout the speech, he talked a lot about American resiliency, and Americans are resilient regardless of what government is in place, and how much more so as we as Christians to show them what it is to truly be resilient and to truly have freedom. So let your light shine.
Let your light shine. As it gets darker and darker out there, we get brighter and brighter. And I address all of what's happening with the Antichrist agenda in my new book, Summoning the Demon, AI, Aliens, and the Antichrist. If you'd like to get a hold of it, you can go to summoningthedemon.com, blame it on the Nephilim.com, or just encountertoday.com. Wherever you want to go, you'll probably find it wherever you go. And
congratulations, by the way, on becoming the alien guy. So great.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
I think that's I was talking with someone today, and we said, I think that's the reason why the book is doing so well, because they know that they're going to get the word of God. Like when they come to me, Pastor Alan DiDio is not the alien guy. So he's talking about it. He's going to take you to the word and bring balance to the conversation. So if you want a balanced look at all this stuff, and there's some wild stuff out there, be sure to check out summoningthedemon.com. And thank you. Thank you so much, Mattea. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
All right, guys, go check it out. We'll see you next time. God bless.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
He asked me point blank, have you read your Bible lately? And I said, well, sir, I think I know what it says. And he said, well, then you would know that these things are demonic.
And it turns out that actually, yes, these things have been shot down and crashed, and the U.S. government has the wreckage.
There's just no question that some of the reports seem to tell of the sort of thing that you find in poltergeist phenomena.
I mean, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon.